So I want to start out with a number, 270 million. That is the number of emails that get sent, okay, quiz, in a year, in a quarter, in a month, in a day, in an hour. What's the time frame for 270 million emails? Anybody want to take a shot?
An hour.
An hour.
An hour. Oh, no, it's not quite that bad. That's how many emails show up in my inbox in an hour. But actually, it's 270 million marketing, and I should have said these are marketing emails sent every day. So there's a lot of emails out there, right? So this is a big deal. Now, I'm a history buff, so I always like to know where all this stuff came from. And if we go back far enough, we always got to find some odd precursor. So this is, of course, a telegraph. If we go back into the mid-1800s, this is how information got sent. Pretty inefficient, sending it out there one letter at a time. The throughput was pretty low, although interestingly, the very first fax machine that was invented around 1870, and it used a telegraph. You could send a fax via telegraph. Not a good way to do it. So then as we moved into about the world, just before World War II, the telex machine came into being, and the telex was popular up into as late as the 1980s. The telex, of course, is basically a typewriter that communicates over telephone lines, and you type it here and it prints out on somebody's telex machine somewhere else in the world. So this is getting a little closer to email, but is still pretty clunky from an email standpoint. So then right about 1971, we get to this guy whose name is escaping me and my notes are covered up, who basically, he sent the first modern email. There were some precursors to it, but really he did two things. He first sent the first email. Now, 1971, there was no internet. 1971, he was sending this over lines that directly connected one computer to another. So this is pretty early on. And that little @ symbol behind his head, he invented that also. So the little @ that separates you from the location where the computer can find you, that's his job.
Roy Tomlinson.
Say again, what, Tim?
Roy Tomlinson.
Thank you very much. Roy Tomlinson, blanking on his name. All right, and then came along this guy, Mr. Thurk. Thurk was an engineer for Digital Equipment Corporation. Yes, the same Digital Equipment Corporation, Courtney and Grant and Bridget that we were talking about in class today. And he sent the first marketing email. He sent it to 400 different engineers. And his claim is that he got $13 million worth of business off of sending one email to 400 different people. And given the numbers at which we send out emails these days, that was a pretty good return on that investment. But yes, he is the inventor of spam. Spam the email, not spam the
little
food.
history, Brad.
Yeah.
I actually worked on deck equipment back in the day. I
Oh, no kidding.
Myself.
You are dating yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a different day.
Yes, it was.
So let's talk a little bit about uses. When we're thinking about designing an email campaign, we obviously want to be thinking about several things, one of which is, well, what do we want to use it for? So, and there are quite a few different things we can use it for. I have a small selection here. We can use it for branding, for communicating about our brand. We can use it for customer acquisition. We can use it for customer engagement. We use it as part of direct sales. which would be something that David would be using it for on a regular basis. We can use it for reactivation. Customers who haven't purchased in a long time, we can reach out to them with that. We can use it to create traffic to our website, to help us retain customers, to get referrals. What else? What any other uses that you all have put emails to? Marketing emails. Any thoughts out there? No? I'll try to get you to respond periodically, but there's a pretty good selection of uses. And you're obviously going to design it differently for different uses. You also want to think about, well, what's your purpose? That is, what do you want to have happen out of this email? And it's really easy to end up sending emails without being really clear about your purpose. Oh, I need to reach out to that person. Well, what's the purpose? What are you wanting them to do differently, think differently, feel differently because they got your email? So your purpose might be maintaining relationship. You just want to let them know you're still out there. You want them to remember you, to think kindly of you, that you remembered their birthday, etc. It may be an email to inform them, provide them information. You may be announcing an event, like announcing that you're running a meetup, you're trying to get butts in seats, or to introduce yourself. So what's the purpose of your email is really important, because really you should have a single purpose for each of your emails. Focus, focus, focus is the way to go here. And then a goal. This is specifically, what actions do we want customers to take from our email campaign? I am a big believer in what I call behavioral marketing. That is, the goal of our marketing is to get people to act, not to get people to feel. That's great if they feel, but to get people to act. And the sequence, of course, is feel, do, think. Sometimes we think it's think, feel, do. Nope, it's feel, do, think. We act before we come up with the rationalization for our action. So if we want them to act, we want them to click through and turn into website traffic. We want them to register. We want them to buy, maybe out of an email. Maybe there's a better sequence for that. Talk about that a little bit later. We might be wanting to affect their attitude, create a positive attitude toward our products. That's not a bad thing. It may not be the most effective thing we can ask for, but it is an important part of it. We may be wanting to build customer knowledge, to build their understanding of our product. Granite-Crete is a great example. That's David's product, is one that it's important that people understand what Granite-Crete is, because it's different from most paving materials. Oops, did I go too far? Nope, I didn't. Now, once you know your purpose and goal, why you're doing this, if you're going to send it out, you're going to need to build a list. And we all invest lots of resources in building a list. We put subscribe links on our website. Had a big conversation about that this afternoon. Anjika was pushing us on ways we could build in incentives for people to subscribe on one of our websites for the IIED. You can put subscribe links in your emails. You should have subscribe links in your email. You should have subscribe links in every one of your emails. I can't imagine why you wouldn't have those. And of course, social media is another way that you can help build a list. Lots of ways to build lists. The one important thing I would say is don't buy lists. You don't want to go out there and be buying long lists of people and sending them out. You will get nailed for spamming. You will have huge numbers of unsubscribes, and it's actually technically illegal to do. So be very, very careful of buying lists. And there are lots of folks who will sell you lots of lists. Now, I'm talking about buying lists to send out newsletters. There are legitimate reasons to buy lists for contacts, but buying email lists is not necessarily a good idea. I put in the picture there was actually, as I was putting this together, this was a pop-up that came up on a site that I was on, and I thought it was kind of an interesting pop-up. They use a little bit of good humor. It's a little edgy. I always like humor. I like edgy. It gets people's attention. Notice that this is a pop-up asking you to subscribe to their newsletter. It's asking for your name, and they've got a cute name in there, Smiles Davis. It's asking for your email, which of course they need. And then it's got a little important checkbox that says, I'm okay with getting emails and having that activity tracked to improve my experience. So they're being very effectively upfront here that you're not only going to get emails, but they're going to attach things to that email that will track your behavior with it. So this is making it entirely legal. You're going to have to manage your list. You can manage them in Excel files. I've done that often enough, but there are better ways to do it. And there's at least a couple of different flavors you ought to think about for managing your list. So there are apps that are designed for email. MailChimp is an example of that. Constant Contact is an example of that. Emma is an example of that. They are designed specifically for email. There are other ones that go beyond email and are really customer relationship manager software. Salesforce, which Granite Crete uses, actually Agile CRM, which we've used with 21CM, are both customer relationship managers. They have a lot more capability than the straight email managers like MailChimp or Constant Contact, although they may not be quite as good at doing emails than those are. So it's common to integrate, for example, MailChimp and Salesforce, which is what we do at Granite Crete, or Agile CRM and MailChimp, which is what we do at 21CM. HubSpot is another one. HubSpot both has an email manager and a full-blown CRM. HubSpot's got quite a wide variety of things available. But you want to use these programs because they will help you to track what happens with your emails. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Designing your email, some things you got to think about there. So audience, purpose, and desired outcome. Audience, who am I sending this email to? Purpose, why am I sending this email? And desired outcome, what do I want them to do because they got this email? So let me say just a little bit on each of those. Audience shouldn't be any kind of news to anybody in this group other than we all get a little sloppy about audience sometimes. And focus comes in here again. The more narrowly you target your audience, the more you're going to be able to tailor the email to fit their interests, their desires, their preferences. So I encourage narrow audiences. Actually, an example, David, it was great that you came on because now all my examples are going to be Granite Crete examples. We just changed over a few months ago the Granite Crete monthly newsletter from a general newsletter that we sent out to all the folks on our email list. And there's about 1,600 people on our email list. And it was going to everybody. Now, within that email list, though, there are some very different folks. There are landscape architects. There are landscape contractors who are very different than landscape architects, even though they're both working with landscapes. There are retailers, typically for Granite Crete, we're working through landscape supply stores. And then there are homeowners. Not a lot of homeowners. We are not particularly marketing directly to homeowners at this stage. But what we did just a few months ago was we took that newsletter and we broke it up into 3 parts. So now we're still sending that one newsletter to everybody, but it has a section that is targeted toward landscape architects, a section that is targeted toward the landscape contractors, a section that is targeted toward the retailers. And it has made a huge difference in the quality of that newsletter, doing that extra targeting. So purpose, we always want to be clear why we're sending this email out there, and then desired outcome. What is the behavior we want them to do out of this email? Again, it's feel, do, think is the behavioral sequence. So we want to build some emotion into our email. A flat informational email is likely to be much less effective than one that evokes some emotion, because it's emotion that's important to action. If you want them to take action, you're going to need to get them to feel something, but don't just leave them there feeling that. Get them to take action. The wonderful thing about the electronic world, the digital world, is that people can take action on their desires at any time of the day or night, 24/7. Now, I think it's useful, I think it's always useful to think through the customer's journey, whether we're thinking about their marketing journey or whether we're thinking about their user journey, or in this case, I want to think about how do people read emails? Well, the first thing that they get is a subject line. So you know how your email comes up. You've got all this list of emails, and the first thing you see is the subject line. And out of that subject line, you're going to decide either to open that email or to delete that email. And then if you delete it, you're done with it. Your journey with that email is over. We'll come back to that later when we talk a little bit about automation of the process. So suppose that you open the email. First thing you're going to see is the header, what comes up at the top. And at each of these stages, you're going to make a decision, or the customer is going to make a decision about whether they want to continue reading this email or whether they're done with it and they want to trash it, maybe save it. More often, they're just going to archive it or delete it. So your header needs to capture their attention and give them a reason to continue on in the email. And then they're going to read it, right? Nope. They're going to scan it. Almost nobody reads an email like you read a book. They read their email like my wife reads a book. She skips to the end, reads the end of the book, decides from the ending whether she wants to read the rest of it. Me, if I've read the ending, I don't want to see the book anymore. I'm done with it. But that's where she starts. But that's okay. So people scan the email. So you want to design for scannability. You want to use headers. You want to use bolding where appropriate. You want to use blocking of text so that people can scan through the email and find the parts that they're interested in. We are in a short attention span world. So then they're going to decide, if they haven't at this point deleted the email, if they go on, they're going to read the email, probably selectively, probably not start to finish. So make sure that the good parts are really visible there. And at some point here, if you're lucky, they will respond to a call to action that you've put in there. So I think each of these steps of the journey are important in how we design an email, remembering that we're always having to provide an incentive for people to go to the next step, because like I said, 270 million emails, that's how many are waiting for me at the beginning of the morning. And my practice is to go through and go click, 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 click to delete all the emails that I'm not interested in. Time to write. So some of the things we want to think about in the design elements, not all of them, but some of them, we'll look at some others later. The sender name and brand logo, how you identify yourself in the email, the subject line, of course, the header, the body, and the footer. Look at those briefly. Branding. Now, be interested to hear if Fanny sees it any differently, but to me, branding goes far beyond look and feel, but look and feel is an important part of branding and should be there all the way through when they're looking at an email of yours. If they're then looking at your website, they should be very clear that your email came from that website or that website is connected to that email. There should be a common look and feel between them. You want to continue reinforcing that look and feel. So you're creating a unity across all of your marketing communications. And that comes down to writing style and tone and lots of other things beyond simply look and feel. The sender email address, if you get an email and it's from info@somecompany.com, most likely you're not going to bother with that. You're going to say, this is not a very interesting email. You want that email to come from a person, preferably, much more higher likelihood that people will read it. And then using employing the logo and colors and fonts, as I talked about, to create the look and feel. All right, your email campaign will fail if you don't get this right. Does anybody want to know what I'm going to put up here? You want to know? Guess what I'm going to put up here. What would I put up here after that kind of a lead in? Anybody got a guess?
Audience.
Nope.
Call to action.
Nope. Not call to action. Good guesses, but not. Nope. It's the subject line. You got to give them a subject line that's going to hook them and get them to say, I want to know what's in that email. And trust me, they're more interested in deleting than they are in reading. So you got to tease them with something. So let's look at subject lines. So actually, here's a collection of, so these are actual subject lines written in actual emails. You'll recognize at least one of them, I'm sure. There's at least one of them that I get 3 of about each day. So I'm curious, which one of these, or which of these, might be more than one, would get you to open an email, and which, if any, are ones that you look at and say, I would never open that email?
I always get the people are looking at your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, and does that get you to look?
Yep.
Yeah.
That one's really effective, right? Oh, people are interested in me. I'd better find out who that is.
I always, the 5 homes that are trending right now sounds like Zillow, and I always open those because I'm crazy about houses. I used to be in real estate.
There you go. And actually, good guess, Angika. That is a Zillow subject line.
Addicted to Zillow, so yeah.
I would ignore the we want to give you money or the $1,000 hair or open up. Wowie zowie.
You'd ignore those?
Yeah.
You mean they're going to say, we want to give you money and you're not going to open that?
It's automatically a hoax.
So that's just because, so if you go over the top, then people aren't going to trust it. But I'm not sure I would pass up one, even though, so this is one where you'd open it knowing it's going to be a hoax, right? But just on the off chance that it might not be, you might open it. Anybody know whose tagline that is or whose subject line that is?
It's a loan officer.
I know, actually. It sounds like it would come from a bank, right?
Yeah.
No, it's actually Dollar Shave Club.
Oh.
So, and so it is misleading in a sense. Dollar Shave Club is a great marketing organization, brilliant use of humor in their marketing. So anyhow, so there's a set of, so here's some strategies to use for subject lines, things to think about. Now look, a subject line that works for one person may not work for someone else. So some of this is going to be audience specific, but a few strategies you could think about. One is FOMO, fear of missing out. We want to give you money, but it's probably a hoax, but I wouldn't want it to not be a hoax. So I think I better check this out. So FOMO would be one. Curiosity, something a little bit offbeat. Why you should keep your clothes in the freezer. So I think I'd open that one just to find out what the heck did somebody come up with as why you should keep your clothes in the freezer. Humor. Humor's good if used wisely. What to do when you're the sweaty, smelly guy at the gym. Humor is interesting in advertising in general because humor used well is extremely effective, and humor used poorly is extremely distracting and can get people very much liking your ad, but having no idea whose ad it is because they're so distracted by the humor. So use humor wisely. A pain point. Put in the subject line a pain point. Sit back and let someone else do the cooking. So you're referring specifically to a pain point in it. Re-engagement. Hey, did you forget to open this? I'll show you a great example of this that actually happened to me last night when I was working on this. That'll come later. And finally, social proof. Simple recipes from popular chefs. Well, this must be good if it's coming from popular chefs. So just some strategies. The subject lines are really critical, though, because so much people have a bias to deleting emails, not reading them. Some simple rules: keep it short, be clear, focused, and specific. Place the most important words at the beginning of the subject line. They're not going to read the fifth word if they don't read the third word. So you got to keep them going at the third word. Use personalization tokens. We've all gotten emails that say, Brad, we haven't heard from you in a while. And those are hard to not automatically open even before you look at who sent it. And then you say, I should have known. But personalization works. The numbers are about 14% higher if you use for opens, if you use personalization tokens. Don't make false promises or mislead your readers. That's just basic good marketing. Don't use all caps, he said, in all caps. It's obnoxious. It feels like yelling. It's not good practice. And tell them if you need a response. For example, ideas needed, themes for picnic events. If there's something where they're going to be able to interact and contribute, that may be a good thing to put in your subject line. All right, the body of the email. Keep it relevant, keep it short. Good luck. Keep it short and showcase benefits, not features. Don't use your emails to tell people all the wonderful features your product has. Tell them why their life is going to be successful with your product in it. Basic rule of marketing. Tell benefits, not features. After the body comes a footer, and there's some things that are standard to have in there and some things you need to have in there. The branding, I think in the footer, you've probably been very forward with your branding in the header of your email. In the footer, there should be branding there, but it should be more subtle. I think you don't want to make your email sort of footer heavy, if you will. The footer I'm showing on this slide does not have a copyright in it. You may want to have a copyright in it. quiz. How well do you know your copyright law? If you don't put a copyright bug, at the bottom of your email, does that mean that people can use the content of your email? My students should know this.
Yes, no?
Whoops, sorry. Let somebody in. Say it again, Tim.
Yes, can they? It's
No,
not
they
copyright?
can't.
Oh, if it's not.
It's your content.
Yeah.
You wrote it. You don't have to put the copyright bug there technically
okay.
to own the copyright, but it's a good idea. It reminds people this is your content. So I like using the copyright bug, but your choice. Links to social media. This one does have social media in it. I like to have a link to the website in the footer also. Always make it easy for people to get to your website. Okay, the part you do need to have there is about giving them options around either resetting their email preferences or unsubscribe. If you're sending out mass emails and you don't have an unsubscribe down there, that's technically an illegal email. You could probably fly under the radar until you can't, but that unsubscribe needs to be there. Actually, the mail programs like MailChimp are set up, most of them are set up so that they won't let you send it without that unsubscribe in there. They actually look for it. User experience beyond the content. So we always think about our emails that we're sending them for the content, which is true. But you also want to think about your email from a user experience standpoint. And that comes back to color and photos and infographics to make it visually appealing, make it fun to look at, fun to read, and make sure that it provides value. And that was the bottom line on what Bridget talked about with hashtags. It's the bottom line on all marketing communications. Your marketing communications are not there so that you can tell your poor customers something that you want them to know. You want to tell them what they want to know. You want to find out what does your audience care about and give them that. So when they get to the end of that email, they can say, wow, I enjoyed that email. I'm glad I read it. And then they'll read your next email. A couple of other design elements, keywords and calls to action. We heard about those a minute ago. Say a little bit about those. With keywords. Now, keywords in your emails are not, to my knowledge, are not going to help your SEO because they're in your email. They're not on your website and they're not directly related to your website. And to my knowledge at this point, Google hasn't gotten clever enough to link emails to websites that way, although it may be a matter of days or they may have already done it. But I still like to reinforce the keywords from your website because that helps to keep you on message when you're communicating with your customers. And also keep it to a limited number. You may have a reasonable number of keywords that you have built into your website and that you're trying to rank for, but don't try to address all of those keywords in a single email. Back to focus, focus, focus. Keep it to 1 or 2 or 3 keywords for that email, but use them. Pay attention to them. Links. You want to have links in your email because you don't want them to stop at the end of the email and be done with it. You want, when they're going through the email, that should be the beginning of a larger journey to your, typically to your website, maybe to your physical store, but for most of us now, we're sending them to our website. Some different styles on links. You want to provide information in the link button or in the inline link about what that link is about. So you probably wouldn't ever do a button that says click here. you'd always do a button that says shop our sale. So why do lots of people still, when they're putting it in line, do get 20% off, click here, versus get 20% off, shop our sale? Now, I believe that some years ago, this one would have been better because people weren't used to clicking on links and they weren't used to what links look like in text. But at this point, most people are familiar with that. So give them something to do that's more interesting than clicking. Shop our sale, save money, visit our store. Just as a, whoops, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? So if I click, oh, I see what it's doing. It's going all the way through. Aha. Sorry, now I got to get back to my presentation. I can't get back to my presentation. There we go. I do have that linked. I had it set up so that when I was working with it in the Google Slides, when I clicked on it, it actually popped up a message that said, don't use click here. And it was actually a website devoted to, or a web page that was devoted to saying, don't use click here. All right, calls to action, really, really important. Calls to action are a standard part of marketing. It's all about action these days, not about attitude. Sorry, my mouse is getting active. So this is a screenshot out of an actual email, out of an email from Mortgage News. It was a part of a larger email. And they've got a call to action. They've given you a teaser about an article that might be interesting to you. If it is, they've given you a call to action to go and check it out. And calls to action should be exactly that. Don't be afraid to tell them what you want them to do and how to do it. It's the old political adage. If you want their vote, you have to ask for their vote. You have to remember to say, vote for me. Which it takes wet behind the ears politicians a little while to get used to. I'm going to say just a little bit about accessibility. So let's serve everybody out there, right? So a few things that can help in making your emails accessible to various impairments. So for the vision impaired, they may be using a screen reader, in which case you want to use some things that help the screen reader figure out in what order is it supposed to read through. Now, if it's just a straight top to bottom email and not very interesting design, this may not be an issue. But if you've got different text blocks and they relate to each other differently, the screen reader may have some trouble figuring that out. It will use your H1, H2, H3, and so on headers to help it sort out the hierarchy of the text. So use those headers in building your email. If you've got important text in there, bold it. This is important also for scannability. If I'm writing an email to somebody and it's got a lot of explanation, but there's a couple of key pieces of information I need them to get, I want to make sure that those key pieces of information are either set off or bolded so that they can quickly pick that information up by scanning. If you've got images in your email, you make sure you use alt text. Again, the screen reader is going to then read the alt text because it doesn't know what to do with the picture. So it'll read the alt text. So make your alt text informative. Use large enough text, minimum of 14 point, to help people like me who can't read and don't always have their glasses right nearby. And large enough buttons and large enough link tap areas. You do have people, that's not so much about vision impaired as it is people who are a little bit mechanically impaired and have trouble getting a mouse onto a little tiny spot. So give them some area to work with. Just a little on that. Visuals. Use photos and graphics. The human brain is designed primarily to process visual information. Human brain was designed to see the tiger. It wasn't going to learn. The human brain was not designed to read about the tiger. It was designed to see the tiger. So the human brain is very, very interested in visual information. But the human mind hates stock photos. So try to avoid stock photos. I know we all use them because we run out of other stuff. But unfortunately, most stock photos really do look like stock photos. And I would be careful with GIFs. Everybody loves GIFs. GIFs are very engaging, but I don't want my visuals to be so engaging that people are not looking at my content. So don't let your GIFs overrun. It's like you overusing humor. It becomes distracting. A little bit on results. What do we want to measure? Maybe other things we want to measure too, but we certainly want to know, did they open our email? Did they click on our email and go to our website? And did they buy anything? Now, opens, that's the job of your subject line, is to get them to open it. Traffic, clicking, that's the job of the main part of your email, is to get them to click. Sales, that's usually not going to be the job of your email. The job of your email is more likely to be to get them to your website and hand them off to your website. And it's going to be the job of your website maybe to generate sales or to get them to the salesperson, depending on the kind of product that you've got. So here's actually, this is a journey I went through last night. I got an email, and this was while I was working on this presentation. So I thought, well, here's a fresh example. I'll use this. Email from Tom Taylor. This is a store in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And they have, they specialize in belt buckles, not your average everyday belt buckles, but really beautiful silver, gold, inlaid, just amazing belt buckles for men and women. Oddly enough, it's probably more men's belt buckles than women's belt buckles at it. They also do, they have bags there also, but belt buckles is their main thing. I do own one Tom Taylor belt buckle. I'd love to own another Tom Taylor belt buckle. So when I saw the subject line, which said 20 to 60% off everything, early VIP invitation, I fell for it. I said, wow, maybe they've got something I'd actually want to buy at 60% off. And at 60% off, I could probably afford it with only a small loan from the bank. And okay, they're going to call me a VIP, so they're going to butter me up. I'll fall for it. So I went to their site. I clicked through. The button to click through isn't showing on this part of the email. It was down a little bit below. But I believe that they wisely, if I remember correctly, they wisely made this entire graphic into a clickable button. So if you clicked anywhere on that graphic accidentally, you ended up at their website. And I thought that that was a wise piece of design. So then I went to their website, and this is where I landed, Tom Taylor, belts, buckles, bags, and I'm only showing the top of it. There were more belts down below, but this shows 3 of their belts. And you'll notice that these are not, by the way, those prices are only for the buckle. The belt comes extra. And the belt is not like an extra $10. It's also really expensive. So I'm looking at these and saying, now, wait a minute. They were talking about this big deal sale, and I don't understand. I don't see any sale prices here. So I thought, well, I'll look through anyway. And I got to this buckle, and I said, wow, okay, that's a buckle I would love to own. It's subtle, but it's beautiful. Oh, well, it's not that subtle, but it's not as crazy as some of them. But at $5.95, nah, I'm not buying that belt buckle unless it's on sale. So I thought, well, here's what I'll do. I'll put it in my cart because I thought I saw a little note somewhere about discount taken at the cart. So I tested it out and I put it in the cart. And then I found this page. the 2020 inventory clearance page. So this is the page where the big sales are. And you'll notice the belt buckle in the middle, nice turquoise belt buckle, original price $3,995. On sale for only $1,995, a whopping 1/3 off. Okay, so they're starting to irritate me a little bit, but clearly now I know I've found the sale items, and the belt buckle that I was looking at is not really on sale. It turns out that everything on the site is at least 20% off, but 20% off was not enough. So I left. I abandoned my shopping cart. So I went on working with this presentation. I was working on it, and I went back and did a quick scan of my email, and lo and behold, and by the way, I forgot this part of the story. So when I'm looking at this inventory clearance, I got to the bottom of that page and it said showing items 1 to 22 of 22. And I thought, wow, this is a sale. You have 22 items. You have probably thousands of items in inventory, and 22 of them are on sale. Okay, so I was not happy with Tom Taylor. So anyhow, I went back and I went back to work on the presentation. And so I'll go back to the presentation, and then I'll give you the punchline, which is actually relevant to what we're doing. So when you're setting up your calls to action in your email, here's a tool that I consider to be a tool you should just automatically use. It's a free tool from Google, and the URL for it is, whoops, sorry. I'm going to try to grab this URL. Stop it. It's not going to let me do that. Why is it giving me so much trouble here? Stay. There we go. Copy link address. Now, if I can find chat, I'm going to put that link address in chat, because this is a tool that if you haven't used it before, and I'm sure some of you have, you should use it. As I said, free tool. Here's what it does. So you're going to give people a link to your website, and it could be to a page on your website, whatever, but the place where you're sending them, you want to put in this website URL, and that's where this is going to send them. But then you're going to add in some other information. You're going to say, well, what was the campaign source? Well, this was in our newsletter. So you write in newsletter. And what was the campaign medium? This was, we put this in an email. We sent the newsletter out via email. So that was the campaign medium. And we're going to give it a campaign. This was our October 2020 newsletter. So we'll give it that name. And then we could also give it a term if this is related to a specific term. And we could give it another identifier if we're trying to do A/B testing. So I might have one link that I've set up the button one color, and in another version of the newsletter, I give the link a different color. And so I might say campaign content, this is blue link, and in the other one, I'd call it green link. These last two are not required. You don't have to put anything in them. But here's what the URL builder does, is it converts that. Now, you've all seen links like this. This is a short one in these days. But here's the link. So it's going to send them to 21cm.global. But then it has appended this information: UTM source equals newsletter, medium equals email, campaign equals October 20. Now, why have I done that? When I go into Google Analytics and I look up where is my traffic coming from, Google Analytics is going to identify traffic that came from this specific link in the email. So if you've got 5 different links in a newsletter, you can give a unique name with the URL builder to each of those links, and you can know which link got you your traffic. Right, so this is an automatic. You should do, if you're putting a link in an email, if you're putting a link in social media, if you're putting a link anywhere, it could be in a blog that you're publishing on Medium. If you're putting that link out there, you want to identify so that when you run your Google Analytics, you can know where your traffic is coming from. So this is a really useful tool. All right. Automations. And this is going to lead us to our punchline here. So think about for a moment, what do you do if people don't open your email? All right. So you're sending out, let's say, 1,600 emails. And you're probably not going to go through one by one and check to see if they opened your email. And if they didn't open your email, send them a reminder or a second version of that email. Probably not going to happen. Or what do you do if they do open your email? So now you know that they've seen some kind of content. You might want to send them another email that reinforces that content. But if you do this manually, you're going to spend your entire life doing that. So you want to automate this process. So here's how it looks on the other end. They receive an email. Your recipient receives an email and they might not open it. Imagine that. They get an email from you and they don't open it. So then you would like to send them a reminder. Or they do open it and maybe they click, in which case that's great. Now you've got them on your website. You don't need to worry about the email anymore for now. I'm keeping this simple. This could get a lot more complex. Or they open it and they don't click. You might want to send them a reinforcement email to try to get them to click. So you don't want to do all this process by hand, and you don't need to do this process by hand. Any good email program is going to set it up so that you can build campaigns like this, so that if they don't open your email within 2 days, that campaign, your email program, like a MailChimp or Agile CRM, will automatically send them a reminder email. In fact, you can set it so that if they don't open that one after 2 days, it sends them another reminder email. And we've all had this happen, right, with questionnaires where they keep sending you reminders and hounding you until either they run to the end of their campaign or you give in and answer their questionnaire. Okay, so these automations are fairly easy to set up and are an important part of building email campaigns. And here's an example of one, an automation requiring also an integration. So later on in the evening, about a half hour after I had left the Tom Taylor site and abandoned my shopping cart, I got this email that had this as the subject line on it. Did you forget something? And of course, I had to check this out because I knew immediately what was going on. So this is Tom Taylor following up with me because, whoops, I was thinking I could scroll that. I don't know why I thought that. You'll notice the belt buckle down at the bottom of the page is that belt buckle that I was looking at that I had put into the shopping cart and left it there. And so they're just reminding me to make sure I don't forget about that belt buckle. Is this effective? Yes, it's very effective. Was it effective with me? No, it was not very effective with me, but it did get me to do some free advertising for Tom Taylor. You all know about Tom Taylor now. If you want to get somebody a really, really great gift and you've got some money, Tom Taylor's a great place to go. And no, they're not paying me to say that, but I'm working on it. Think some closing
You know you're
thoughts.
getting a free belt out of this.
Yeah, maybe I'll get a free belt out of it. No, not from them. That would be a high pay. Email marketing, extremely effective. Start building your list now. Keep building your list. Please don't spam and use automations. They rule. A little bit of an Easter egg. Y'all know what Easter eggs are, right? Not those things that we look for on Easter. What kind of an Easter egg am I referring to here?
Something hidden.
Well, hidden, yeah, but so in the world of cinema, the Easter egg has become a thing.
It's connected to something else.
It's connected to something else. Yeah. So when you get to the end of any of the Marvel movies, Iron Man or Thor or any of those, they go into the credits and you think it's all done and you're about to walk out of the theater, and then all of a sudden they come up with another scene that gives a hint about a future movie, and they call that an Easter egg. So this is an up and coming. This is pretty new to me. I have not delved into it deeply. I intend to, because this is very cool. Sending interactive dynamic emails. This is effectively almost putting an interactive web page into somebody's email inbox. It allows you to build app type functionality into an email. But the only thing we've been able to do up until now is let people click from the email to the website. But here we can actually provide interactive content directly in the email, which just sounds amazing to me. But I haven't dug into it yet. I will, and maybe we'll do a report on it a few months down the road when we've had some time to play with it. This is, my understanding is that this is open source software. So I'm sure that this is going to get built into most of the email programs that are out there pretty quickly, because it's going to be very cool. I just leave you with a little visual. This is what happens when you're on, let's see, Anjika and I did this by accident a few weeks ago. We're communicating through Google Hangout. She's in Portland, I'm in Monterey, so we communicate via the internet. And I did a screen share, and I did a screen share on the screen that I was viewing the Google Hangout on, and this is what it did. So try that sometime. It's really fun watching it build this. So enough of that. Any questions? I'm open to questions or comments, things that you'd want to add in. A big part of this is sharing knowledge. So if you've got anything that, hey, how come he didn't cover and this is really important, throw it out there or ask about it. Nope.
I actually have a question. You mentioned that you can set up email that automatically resends itself in MailChimp. Does anybody know if that's in a basic subscription, or do you have to purchase additional like monthly, extended one to be able to have this feature? Because I've been using just basic since I haven't really done too much with MailChimp.
Yep.
And I can't recall anything like that. So basically you have to resend it. It must have been a different subscription.
I actually don't know, because most of the email campaigns that I have run, I've done through Agile CRM, and it's built into the CRM platform on Agile.
Okay.
Does anybody else know about automations? Well, that looks like something we're going to have to do a little research on, and we're going to have to send out an email sometime next week saying, here's the answer to Aga's question about how you do an automation in MailChimp.
Shit.
We'll get that done.
Thanks.
Yeah, good question. Anything else, Tim?
How did they like when you went to that belt website? what do they use or what tools they use to come back to you saying, oh, we know you're here and you're looking at this?
Um,
They said, we saw you left it in the cart and then
Yeah.
you left.
So they're going to have stuff built into their website, so code built into their website that lets them know the point at which you leave the website, which is actually not very hard in Google Analytics, but you probably want to set up a series of events for that. So they'll know through Google Analytics, but they also would have put code in there that would have provided the information back to whatever they're using. And I'm not sure what they're using to run their email.
Mhm.
They're using an organization. I noticed that the email address there is offers@privymarketing.com. So this is a system that Privy Marketing has set up
Oh, okay.
that they've coded.
So they paid
Uh,
for it.
And I don't know exactly which system they used,
Right.
but this can definitely be built, and is pretty important to build into an e-commerce site like you have with Helping Pets Heal, because people are going to abandon the shopping cart, and sometimes they're going to abandon it like I did here, where I just decided, nope, I really don't want the product. And sometimes they're going to abandon it because they ran into a problem that could be solved, and you'd like to know that and help them out.
Mhm.
So doing this kind of follow-on is really important.
Okay.
And certainly measuring where people are abandoning your site and what stage in the purchase process they're abandoning is important to doing good e-commerce design, because then you want to look at, okay, why did they abandon it? And is there something we can put in the design to help that?
Okay.
Curious, Anjika, do you have anything to add in there relative to sort of WooCommerce and its capabilities?
No, not really. I do know that some platforms have that functionality built in. I've worked with BigCommerce and Shopify before, and that's just a setting that you can turn on, and it's recommended. Yeah, that's it.
So we can look at your website, Tim, and see what, given the way it's set up, is there a good way to build that in? But still, I think the number one place to put the resources on your website right now is building building legitimate traffic, right? Real traffic for the site. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us and hanging out with us. And so next time, just to do a little ad here at the end. Whoops. Oh, I've got to get out of this and back into the master set. And a request I always make when we get to this stage is, what kind of topics would you be interested in our having for the meetup? I'd love to have everybody put at least something in the chat. That always helps guiding us for future topics. So what would you like to hear about? What would you like to explore? Or what would you like to present on? If you've got something you want to present on, that would be great also. Whoops, we lost Bridget. She's coming back. Got to let her back in. There we go. And next month, we're going to have the CSUMB Digital Marketing Seminar students. They're going to be presenting. They've been working all semester on putting together a piece on how to build an e-commerce website. And so they will be reporting out in November. That's November 24th. I think it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I know you'll all be traveling to Europe and Asia for Thanksgiving, so you probably won't be available. I only wish that were true. But you'll be here, so join us for the Thanksgiving edition and hear from the students. They're really great. They do great presentations on building an e-commerce website. And if you want to talk to us, you're welcome to reach out to us. please do. We like to help.